The model's hair has been previously lightened using White Up and 6% Color Develop, then toned using 20 ml of 9/5 lightest blonde violet and 60 ml of clear Intensitone with 80 ml of 3% Color Develop. A large section consisting of 2 triangles which follow the disconnection of the haircut on the right side have been carefully sectioned off. The first triangle sits over the ear, slanting across the head to the brow, finishing 1 centimetre beneath the natural parting. The second smaller triangle works from the ear down to the nape. Start the technique on the back triangle by using a classic back-to-back slicing technique where fine veiled slices are taken at an angle that follows the perimeter of the disconnection. Colour the first section by laying the hair onto the foil and carefully apply the first shade to the hair. The first colour is 15 ml of clear Intensitone and 5 ml of pink Intensitone and 20 ml of 3% Colour Develop. To make orientation easier, all of these sections are coloured using the silver foil. Continue using the same colour and slicing method for the next 2 sections, gradually building a solid field of the soft rosé blonde. Note how the supporting hand is used as a platform under the foil to ensure a thorough application of the tint throughout the lengths of the section. After completing the third slice, change the colour to 15 ml of pink Intensitone with 15 ml of 3% Colour Develop. These sections will use the gold foil. This colour will be used for 2 slices. This creates a stronger pink tone in the middle of the soft rosé triangle. Completing 2 sections of the stronger colour, now revert back to the original soft rosé blonde. Sliced section, notice how the angle of these sections remains constant. This ensures that the tonal change within this section remains in the centre of the triangle, avoiding a hard striped line. This completes the first part of the foil technique. Now continue by working on the front section. Following the hairline and the overhang as a starting point, the layers of different colours will now be slightly wedge-shaped, finer at the back, becoming progressively wider towards the front. This allows more colours to be visible underneath the fringe. Once again, start with the first colour combination of 15 ml of clear Intensitone and 5 ml of pink Intensitone with 20 ml of 3% Colour Develop. Start by dividing the first section to be sliced into 2 equal parts. This makes the section easier to handle and ensures a controlled build-up of colour. Apply the first sliced section from the disconnection over the ear, ensuring that it meets the back triangle at the correct height. Continue working up this divided section using the same colour formula for 2 further slices. The line of colour under the fringe section using the same back-to-back slicing technique. Please note that the hairline section is taken extremely finely and with great care to ensure that the fine hairs around the hairline are incorporated. Sliced section of the first soft rosé blonde. This section stops just below the parting to avoid having too much colour exposure. Now divide a second wedge of hair for the next layer of colour. Once again ensure that the wedge is finer at the back and slightly thicker at the front. Continue with the back-to-back slicing technique, but now using the second colour mixture of 15 ml of pink intenser tone with 15 ml of 3% colour develop. Notice the care with which the colour is applied to the root area. Avoid overlapping the edge of the foil as this would lead to colour leaking onto the bleached hair. Now continue in the same manner as before, completing the slices at the back of the section first before moving on to the front area. It is plainly visible that the section is becoming wider towards the front. A total depth of 4 foils will be required at the end of the wedge. Now subdivide the next layer or wedge-shaped section. Using the brown highlighting foil, use a new combination which consists of 15 ml of cyclamen intenser tone and 3% colour develop, and colour the section in the same manner as before with a back-to-back slicing technique. You'll notice that the intensity of the colour is becoming progressively stronger. This creates the laser effect, a strong central beam of light which dissipates towards its edges. Divide a very fine layer for the next colour, as this will be the strongest tone at the heart of the section. This layer will only have a depth of 1 to 2 foils depending on the density of the hair. 10 ml of cyclamen intensitone and 10 ml of 4/5 mid-brown violet with 3% colour develop. Now using the red highlighting foil. Place 2 foils next to each other from the ear to the fringe to create this fine beam. Notice how there's still around 1 centimetre space until the top of the rear triangle. This point is important as it's the guideline to where the top layer of the front section should end. Now continue reversing the order of the colours so that they become softer towards the outside edge of the laser section. The first tone is cyclamen intensitone and 3% colour develop in the brown foil. Note that now less foils are required. 2 to 3 sliced rows of each colour will suffice. Continue with the pink intensitone and 3% colour develop in the gold foil for a further 2 rows. Section by returning to the initial colour choice of 15 ml of clear intensitone and 5 ml of pink intensitone with 3% colour develop. This creates the outer layer of the laser section. The top of the front section now joins the top of the rear triangle. This creates a fluid connection between the front and back areas. Model with the foiled sections completed. Now proceed to tone the rest of the hair. Bisect the head by using the top line of the graduation on the left side as a starting point and the top layer of the foiled section on the right. Clip the top hair away and apply a darker toner to all of the underneath hair. In this case, using 20 ml of 9/6 lightest blonde lavender, 5 ml of 8/6 light blonde lavender, and 25 ml of clear intensitone with 50 ml of 3% colour develop. After defining the dividing line of the interior, continue. using a classic tint application technique in the nape area. Divide the hair over the ear, then apply tint to the hairline in the nape and work slowly and carefully up the head using fine sections to ensure a thorough saturation of pigment to the hair. Please note that even though the hair is very short, the sections are still taken very precisely. Now work up the head until the defining line is reached. Delicate brush strokes around the hairline and notice how the comb and brush work harmoniously together. This is especially important when colouring short areas. Underneath hair has been applied, cover this with highlighting foil. This will make the application of the toner for the top of the head easier to complete. Colour the remaining hair using a toner of 20 ml of 9/5 lightest blonde violet, 2 ml of pink Intensitone and 40 ml of clear Intensitone with 60 ml of 3% Color Develop. Again, start by defining the line from the other side. Once the top section is defined, again use a classic tint application technique to colour the remaining hair. Thoroughly comb the toner through to ensure an even distribution of pigment to the whole hair shaft. When the application is complete, remove the foil covering the underneath section. This will allow the air to circulate around the hair, ensuring a good oxidation of the toner. Here is the finished colour application of the laser technique, now allowed to process according to manufacturer's instructions. Here we see the finished result of the laser colouring technique. A shock of laser beam light within varying tones, graduating from the softer rosé to a bright vermilion core. following and enhancing the detail of the haircut.